As a child, I never realized the kind of impact my father would have in my life, or how much I would imitate him. The first time I remember imitating my father, I was in middle school, and I started picking up his handwriting. I started to write certain letters like my father wrote them. And over the years, and as I've grown older, I've realized that I've picked up more of my father's mannerisms. I talk like him sometimes, I think like him sometimes, and in some ways, I've become a protege of my father. You know, different people influence you in your words and your actions and your attitudes, and you've picked up on those for good or for bad or indifferent. In the same way, we become imitators of Jesus. We become more and more like Jesus. The more we spend time with Jesus, the more we know Jesus, and the more he impacts our words, our actions, and our attitudes. In Ephesians 5:1, the Apostle Paul encourages us to be imitators of God as beloved children. And throughout the Bible, we're taught to be imitators. We're taught to become more like Jesus. In Romans 12:1 and 2, the Apostle Paul encourages us to not be conformed to the world, but be transformed by the renewal of our minds, discerning what the will of God is, what is good, and what is acceptable. You know, we live in a broken world where becoming like Jesus is very hard. We don't always want to do that. But as we spend time with him and we know him, and as we seek him, we become more like him. God has already made us holy and righteous in status before him because of our faith in Jesus. But that doesn't mean that we don't sin, we don't mess up, and we're not rebellious. We are. We still are. And this process is called sanctification. That's a really big word to mean we're being made holy in our present life. And this present life is merely a preface of what is to come. Because as believers in Jesus, we have a future under his reign, and a future in his new creation, where the Father, Son, and Spirit will dwell in our midst, and we will have perfect harmony and unity with God. But until that day, as believers, we struggle to pursue Jesus. But Jesus calls us to take up our cross and to follow him. And in doing so, we become more like Jesus as we seek his justice and we seek his holiness and righteousness and beauty and goodness. And so that requires us, by God's Spirit, of course, to renew our minds to becoming more like Jesus. Imitating Jesus matters. It matters because we represent Jesus in a fallen and broken world. And as someone who wants to follow Jesus, learning to follow him is a process. It's a process that will take a lifetime. And so as you become more like Jesus, as you live day by day, one of the things I want to encourage you to do is to consciously ask yourself, how am I imitating Jesus today? Or how can I represent Jesus in the midst of my rebellious and sinful attitudes? Because becoming more like Jesus and imitating Jesus sometimes requires us to give up our desires, to give up our ambitions, so that others may know him, and so that we may know him, that we may be shaped and reoriented to his Spirit.